Welcome, everybody. It's time once again for the next chapter with Charlie Hedges as he explores turning the page on his life and yours. Hey, Charlie.
Hi, Paul. It was probably a couple of years ago that my good friend Terry Hershey brought up an idea that continues to leave me in a state of wonder. He talked about loitering in the moment. In fact, just a few weeks ago, I wrote a blog on the subject, and when I was chatting with Terry about doing a new podcast, he suggested that be our topic. So, here we are, loitering in the moment. That is, resting in the present moment of a friend-to-friend recorded chat. I'm happy that you chose to join us today, so let's have a time of happy loitering. With that, let's bring on Hirsch. Yo, Hirsch, what's up, man?
Charles, good to see you again.
I was going to open it in Spanish, and I didn't know enough Spanish words to say it.
Yeah, you can tell the people you're learning Spanish now, and that'd be great.
Yeah, but that's not loitering.
Actually, to learn a language, you have to loiter quite a bit, because if you don't spend some time lingering around and trying different ways to pronounce stuff, you'll never get it.
Oh, good idea.
When you try to rush through learning any of that stuff, you'll never get it. That's my favorite thing about when I studied Spanish was the woman. It was a one-on-one woman teaching. Literally walked around the village and went to shops and went to places, and every conversation was in Spanish. So nothing was in a hurry.
Oh, so you weren't in a room doing immersive. You did it in the city. And
And then you talked, and then there was conversations about, then you had to learn the nuances, but it was exquisite. I loved it.
Yeah, I'm having fun. So that's a topic for another podcast. That will be fun today. I think today, on the subject of loiter in the moment, has everything to do with you have this ongoing theme, being present in the present moment, paying attention, and practicing what I'm calling the art of discovering the sacred in the everyday. That sort of is a broad stroke description of what you do, is it not?
That's a vivid description of what I do.
Oh, good. So with that, I want to ask you, what comes to mind when you think of loitering? And we're saying loitering in the moment. It's loitering at the present time, wherever you are. How do you practice loitering?
Yeah, before we go to that, about the practicing something, it's a paradigm shift just about the way we see how we measure what it means to be alive and well in the world. So the paradigm shift is a big deal here. As soon as I make loitering a practice, then I'm back to the old paradigm. You said, let's do loitering. So I got my book. Favorite book that I've ever written is called Soul Gardening, right?
Right.
And I'm going to read you one of the paragraphs very early on in the book. You ready? I once asked my analyst, my therapist, why I was in therapy. He told me it would make me a better gardener. Because gardening can be a strong medicine, an elixir, nurtures and shapes the soul. For that reason, it is a tonic seldom taken straight, no ice. Because gardening has a way of seeping into your soul, and one day you find yourself, in the words of the poet May Sutton, spending first half hour of every morning enjoying the air and watching for miracles.
I love that.
That's the for me. So
serve my daily meditation neat. I don't want it with ice.
Exactly. Yeah. So, but that was the whole thing, is that first shift was permission to, I love that, enjoying the air and watching for miracles. In other words, it wasn't a specific thing she went out there to accomplish or do. They invited her to simply be here. Oh, it's my paradigm shift. You ready? And so this is it just so happens that Saturday is the 45th anniversary of my ordination.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because of that, I have to tell you a story from the Bible.
Which is not always that common. Sometimes it is. Oh. Sometimes it is, but not always.
Every 5 years, you have to tell you.
So it's got a chapter and verse involved in it even?
I don't remember the chapter and verse, but one of my favorite stories, of course, is when you're born and raised and you do church stuff or even seminary stuff, there's so many stories in the Old Testament, story after story. Some we enjoy, some we don't, and we have favorites. Well, one of my favorites was always the burning bush with Moses. Here's Moses. The bush is on fire, and there's a voice, right? It's God's voice speaking to Moses. And the voice says, Moses, take off your shoes. Now, here's the paradigm shift. This is literally about loitering. The paradigm shift is this. The church I was raised in, when they preached that story, take off your shoes, God was always, let's just say, not necessarily angry, but not quite always happy. And so we had to somehow make sure we didn't make God more unhappy. And God said, you'd better take off your shoes. You'd better get this right.
Because this place is holy and there's a certain, you can't bring anything mundane into it.
This is, in other words, here we are with the paradigm. You better perform here. You hear this about doing. You better do this right.
Brilliant.
Okay, you ready? Now, wait a minute. He said, take off your shoes, but then the next sentence is, because you're on holy ground. I'm thinking, wait a minute. Take off your shoes. Why? Because you're on holy ground. In other words, as we all know, when we've gone to the beach and put our bare feet in the sand, you're on holy ground. You want to touch the ground. God is saying, this moment, no other moment, this one, right now, where you are, is holy. Take your shoes off and enjoy it. Savor it. Don't let your shoes get in the way.
That is such a delightful interpretation. That is such a delightful interpretation. Instead of perfunctory performance, don't piss God off, do this thing. I want you to fully enjoy this moment. I want you to fully grasp everything that's going on and if this ground is holy, feel it, touch it, smell it, taste it.
Because now we have different, and that's the thing, is the paradigm shift for loitering is the questions are different now. For example, feel. Just think about what we do now when we speak to one another. We say, first we start with, do you do meaning vocation? And we don't even really mean vocation per se. We want to know how you make money. This is the bizarre thing. Right. So you have to justify your time. You can't loiter when you do that. But why is it about what do you do? Why can't it be about, since I've done this thing about the garden and being human, questions have changed. In other words, can I say, tell me something today that made you smile real big? Because if you smiled real big, trust me, you loitered.
So by loitering, it's, define it a little more deeply for me. I was going to try to throw in.
Loitering means that time means nothing right now. Time stops. Time stops.
Yeah.
Time stops. Why? Because what happens when time is that all of your senses are now alive. Hear, taste, touch, and smell things. Touch. But you didn't because you were walking by them because time mattered and you had to get somewhere because you were getting stuff.
It reminds me that you're in a receptive mode, not a proclamation or a performance mode. But it's a purely receptive mode.
The boy said to his mama, Mama, listen to me, but this time with your eyes.
Yeah, I love that.
That's loitering. So let's loiter here for a minute.
I'm noticing that this week in Sabbath Moment, you were talking about, am I catching this right, embracing the healing power of presence? Doesn't embracing the healing power of presence, isn't that intimately tied with loitering?
100%, because I tell this story about a girl that comes home from school and she's crying and the mother's unnerved because the child was crying and what happened. The girl said, I'm sorry, but I'm a bad friend. And the mother said, oh Lord. She said, what do you mean? She said, my best friend Susie had a cat, her favorite cat she loved, and her cat died. I'm sorry, what happened? I'm not a very good friend. And she said, why? What happened? She said, because I didn't know what to tell her. So I'm not a good friend. And she said, then what did you do? She said, just held her hand and cried with her all day.
Did you see the film Past Lives?
Yeah, no.
The Korean film Past Lives?
Yeah, no, but I know the film title.
It was about that they had these two kids had a relationship where the boy always cried with the girl and walked with her, kept with her, and that produced decades-long, even though they were absent from each other, but a decades-long intimate relationship that didn't lead to any kind of physical relationship or marital relationship, but they were so bonded primarily because he held her hand when she was crying.
And see, to me, that's the paradigm shift about lingering. In other words, giving yourself the permission to simply be here now. Because your presence means more to me than anything else about figuring it out, fixing, moving on.
Tell me the story you wrote today or yesterday, but the story about the young girl going to school for the first time and getting dressed up to show her daddy her dress, and how he feels he failed in his response to that. I thought that was a very powerful story.
Yeah, and what's also powerful, since we've been friends for probably going on 40 years, but is the fact that you'll ask me a question about my memory about yesterday, knowing very well I have no clue about what I did yesterday.
But I tried to remind you of the story. Do you remember the story?
It was about his name will come to me, but he was a Scottish preacher. Anyway, he was at his desk, and it was her very first day of school, so it would have been, I don't know, Scotland, maybe the same, but first grade kind of thing. And she was dressed up in apparently a school kind of little outfit, so she was very proud of it. She came to her daddy and his study, and you and I can relate to this. He's in there prepping. He's got to prep for his sermon for this week, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know this. We both know this. We know this scene, too.
So his mind is far off from his daughter. His mind is not catching the presence of his daughter at all. Daddy looked, and he turns to her and says, "You've got to straighten your tie. That's not good." And power of it is he realized the paradigm shift there. In other words, he realized is that his mind was so on his need to perform and achieve and move forward. See, there's the move forward part. Move forward in the sense that I need to get something done now that's fast right now. And he didn't just be with his daughter. She didn't need a statement. She didn't even need someone to fix anything. She just simply needed her dad to say, "See you." But then he spent the rest of the morning walking her to school, loving on her, and encouraging her, embracing her.
But that's the extraordinary thing about loitering. The gift of just pause. You know what? Okay, pause. That's almost what you have to do is take. Now, what he's telling us is that when those kind of things happen, we need to take a time out.
But it's almost requiring. How do we do this? It's before we take we take this time out, but we have to make a conscious decision that something awesome is occurring. Full, not awful, but full of awe at this moment. And if I am continuing to do my list of to-do lists and accomplishments, I'm going to miss all of that. Because it doesn't fit into that paradigm. It requires an entire life, paradigmatic life change, does it not? In everything.
The answer is, of course, yes. But then what happens is we'll turn that into an assignment. And we say, okay, then how can I live that way? Without realizing that we do have moments to live that way every day. We just don't give ourselves the permission to embrace those moments.
Or even the wherewithal to understand that those moments are more important than the productive moments. And maybe is it something we...
Can I tell you?
Yeah.
Can I tell you when you realize it?
Yeah, please.
When you go to any funeral of anybody who matters, and what are the stories they...
What are the what?
to the stories they tell.
Yeah. Yeah. We had a podcast with a friend of mine who is a wedding doula, not a wedding doula, but a death doula. And he is so empathetic and so compassionate. And that's all he does is he goes to families and he spends an hour and a half before the service. And he just has them tell stories. And that's all they do is tell stories. And he says it's a time of tears and bonding. And he's now part of the family.
The great part about the Jewish tradition is that's the way they do that for days.
Yeah.
To honor those things. So here, you'll appreciate this. It's a Zen story. I've used it in places before, but I'm going to read it because a Zen Roshi, the leader, Zen Roshi is dying. Okay? All the monks of the order gather, and eagerness restrained around the deathbed. Why? Because each one is hoping to be chosen as the next leader, the teacher, next Roshi, right? Who's going to be in charge next? The Roshi asks slowly, "Where is the gardener?" Gardener, the monks wonder aloud. And then they say, "Wait a minute, he's just a simple man who tends the plants and he's not even ordained." "Yes," the Roshi replies, "he's the only one who is awake, who will be the next teacher."
Oh, that's beautiful.
There's another verb to add to it.
Awake. Yes.
To go with loitering gives us the invitation, the opportunity, let's call it the opportunity, be awake. That's my thing. Did you see that?
Yeah. That story reminds me of King David. They brought all the guys that had the reputation, that have followed the laws and won the battles and won the wars. And Samuel is led by the Lord to pick the gardener, the shepherd. He's the one who gets it. He's the one who understands. It's the same story of the Roshi, is it not? You know what I was thinking? You know what? As I was preparing this show, you know what came to my mind as a prime example of loitering, and it's an example from your life, you and your son Zach. Would you remind us of that brilliant story? This is like the ultimate loitering story of you and Zach eating a cinnamon roll outside the grocery store on Vashon Island.
Oh yeah, it was the coffee shop called Bob's.
Bob's, of course, Bob's. Everybody has a Bob's.
There's a Bob's. It's Bob's coffee. And anyway, I went for your coffee, and baked goods are all fresh, of course. But you go to Bob's because you chat with everybody, so you chat and learn the news of the island, so to speak. In front of Bob's is a bench. Literally, it was made out of a downed tree. Somebody had made a century-old tree, and so there's that bench. So we're sitting on. And so we're sitting out there, and cinnamon roll, the oozy kind, still warm, and Zach is, I don't know, he must be 9 or 10. So you're just sitting there, because you've been to Vashon. And so the traffic, there's no such thing as traffic.
Yeah, all 4 cars pass you by in half an hour.
Yeah. So we're sitting there, I'm having my unbelievable great coffee. Seattle's best coffee, which was from Vashon Island. And I'm having my great coffee, and Zach is eating this cinnamon roll, and the juices are oozing down his mouth. He's loving on this roll. And with the juices on his face going down his mouth, he just stops. He said, "Dad, this is the life."
From a 10-year-old. That is so beautiful. I know we're early in the show, but I'm going to take a little bit of a twist. So I think it's time that we take a brief break, and then we're going to twist into another realm of loitering. Hi there, this is Charlie Hedges, and you're listening to the next chapter with Charlie, and we are delighted to have our friend Terry Hershey talking about loitering. And it's an illegal thing to loiter, and Terry is saying, let's break the law. Terry, Why don't you tell me that law from some legal document somewhere? What is that law about loitering?
It says loitering laws prohibit lingering in a public area this is the best part, without a purpose.
Everything about that is nonsensical. What does a purpose look like? And the irony of the thing is, in our conversation today, that is our goal. Our goal is to linger without purpose.
I forgot the name already, but she wrote a great book, a memoir book, and then she ended up doing ministry kind of stuff like us. But she realized the kind of stuff she took with her in her spirit and heart about paradigm, and she realized growing up, and I can relate to this. She remembered when they were young children, the mother at home and the father who worked and came home.
Mm-hmm.
And she remembered as children they're playing and having fun at a certain time in the afternoon. And the dad's about to come home. She remembered her mother always not yelling but shouting at the kids, "Stop playing. Get busy doing something so your dad will be proud of you."
I'm silent because that's so tragic, and that is so American, is it not?
Yeah, exactly what it is. That is our culture. And because in Central American cultures, the ones that I've been to, it's an unbelievably different vibe.
Yeah, they're the ones that enjoy. Tell me about the parks in Guatemala and where all the other Central American countries you've been in. The parks are in my neighborhood. After you telling me about parks, we have a little park by our house that has 3 or 4 oak trees, large oak trees, and lots of soccer fields. And every now and then there are families that meet under the trees, and it could be a family of 20 or more people having outdoor barbecues, and they're always Latin. They're always Mexican, Hispanic, Latin, of some Latin nature, and they're just, you can see the joy and the fun of everybody getting together, and we just don't, as white Americans, we don't do that. If we get together, we're going to have a football game or a volleyball match. We're going to compete somehow with each other, and that's our fun. We can't just enjoy, just sit and relax and enjoy. There's got to be some kind of intentional activity involved, and that's not loitering.
No, and it's a lot about, because to me, the quote I get at the beginning of Looking for Miracles, it's really about savoring. And one of the things I try to do, taking it back to your thing about that we practice it or make it a ritual in some sense, is I literally ask myself at the end of each day, tell me, did you savor? In other words, I bring it to mind. Because there is something unbelievably powerful. When I would visit those countries, I would spend a certain time literally sitting a couple of parks, this was Guatemala when I visited, but a couple of parks that I would go simply to sit in. And what did I do? I watched.
Yeah.
And the wonderful thing about that, watching, is you allow yourself to be there, and when you're there, you allow yourself to be present. And every Sabbath morning I wrote when I was there, predicated on simply those moments. There's nothing. Didn't go there with an assignment.
It reminds me of the famous painting by George Seurat, Sunday in the Afternoon, or what? I know there's a play, Sunday in the Afternoon with George, but it's his Tillier painting of a park, and it's just people walking with umbrellas and just simply enjoying this day in a park. And we don't even have parks, so that's what I was thinking. As I was preparing this, and I was thinking about your web presence, Sabbath Moment, and as I looked at the course selection, your book titles, your blog or journal entries that are, because I look at them daily. I know you have the big one on Monday, and then you have weekly, daily inputs. Really, that seems to me that you're merely teaching the rest of us how to loiter. Have you ever thought of it that way?
Yeah, that's literally the way I think of it. I'm hoping for is the permission. I'm just talking from personal experience, that I need to just put down, go any of the things that I'm carrying that require me to perform and or achieve and or whatever, be somebody or to be who I am. It's okay. This Terry is embraced and accepted and loved. It can therefore just be. So the permission to simply loiter, or call it lolling.
Yeah, just being into the loitering, being fully engrossed and embracing the moment for the moment's sake, not for anything of productivity or accomplishing or anything, just being there.
In other words, Moses, before you get all hung up on hearing my voice, just take off your shoes.
Yeah. Just take off your shoes.
You're going to love the ground. It's holy.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a couple of things that I want to present that I use that are my attempts at being fully, we don't have to just say loitering, it's embracing the moment and not having anything else, not having any list or any agenda, just being there, not knowing where I'm going to go. I'll just tease us with when I visit countries by myself, or even with Pam, we don't have any longer an agenda to see sights. We have a place we want to go, and we're a little bit outside of town. We get a map, and we say, this direction on the map, and we just put the map away, throw on our backpack, and we just start walking. And all we're doing is walking to a destination really unknown. We don't know exactly what we're going to see, but we're not trying to get there. We're trying to walk our way there and enjoy the sights and the laundry hanging off the windows and the street vendors, and there's small streets. We don't go on main drags. We go on small streets, and it's just a wonderful way to visit another country. You're seeing the people of the country. And it's
so the best part about that paragraph was that you said we don't need to get there. See, that's it. Get there means wherever I am isn't sufficient.
There's an objective in mind.
We have to go there for whatever to happen. And you can do that with anything in your life. In other words, my vocation, my career, my relationships, whatever, spiritual life, because I have to get there.
I'm listening to our show, and I'm thinking how many in our audience are getting it, and I think there are a number of people that are saying, yeah, I like this, but I start to try it, and obstacles or habits get in the way of accepting this form of presence. What major obstacles do you see that we need to overcome or deal with in order that we can enjoy the present moment, we can loiter in that moment? What obstacles come to your mind?
Nothing worth doing is not worth doing if you can't do it badly. Who said there has to be a measurement about? Sometimes we do that thing and we think, oh my God, I'm sucking at this. I'm supposed to be here now and I suck at this. And then you don't give yourself the permission to literally enjoy the fact, to savor the sucking at it. The fact that you're even aware that you're doing that is amazing.
You know, a big one that occurs to me is that there comes this place, not while I'm doing it, but before I plan, if I plan a time where there's agendaless, I can feel like I'm wasting time, and that is so American, and time associated with productivity, and that I should be more productive. I shouldn't be wasting my time doing this. And that's just such erroneous thinking.
Yeah, that's actually a thing that I encourage people to do, is to check into what that paradigm was, because that's a perfect illustration, is that this is wasteful and this isn't. In other words, where do we get that? Where does that come from? It's like holding someone's hand when they're going through that. The story we told earlier. Very wasteful at all about it.
It's enriching.
just enriching the extraordinary gift of the power of life in the moment. Is life.
And then I've got another one that I wrestle with deeply. I've meditated for several years now. And I still, every time I meditate, but it's getting better and better because I'm accepting my, if you could call it faults, but my monkey mind. They want you to get into this state of mindlessness and this perfect state where you're not thinking of anything, you're just breathing. And I'm not hardwired that way. I'm hardwired to think.
This is my story from my buddy Charlie. You ready?
Yeah.
So this is from many years ago. The novice goes into who's the head of the monastery?
The abbot or the prior.
Okay, so it goes into the abbot, yep. And because he's in certain parts of the day when he does prayer, which is basically meditation, you're simply there. Your mind theoretically is supposed to be focused a certain way, and this is 1 year in already, and the novice is saying, I suck at this unbelievably. The abbot's going, why? Because I don't accomplish anything that I'm supposed to. The mind does not stay still. I know I'm supposed to find this sense of sanctuary, just being at peace in the presence of the holy. Know that. My mind goes everywhere. You do it. My monkey mind. Whatever. All this crap is there. I spend the entire hour of meditation pushing it away. And the abbot laughed, which is what abbots are good to do.
Good abbots.
Good abbots. And the abbot said, I don't know why you would push it away. Then all that stuff needs peace too. Bring it in.
And that is so true. And that's what I've learned to do. I've learned to accept it. Accept it. And then once I accept it, I can remove it. It is no longer part of it. And something else will replace it, but I removed that one.
Yeah, I know, but you can do it now with actually a little smile on yourself.
Yeah.
You realize, you know what? Hey, come on in. You need to be here. And what you realize is they don't need to take once you do that, you realize they don't need to take as much space as they have been taking.
Yeah. There's a couple more I want to run by you. I don't like the word thinker. I ponder thoughts and I think deeply and I will go into these thoughts. And for me, one of the ways in which I ponder and I loiter, and that's in my daily contemplative prayer in which I have no goal except to sit in the presence of the holy. I don't do petitionary prayer. I'm not asking for things. I'm just sitting in his presence, and it's not unlike meditation, Buddhist meditation, but this is a little bit more focused on the holy and the divine. And does a monkey mind run wild there? Yeah, but not so much when I have this holy in mind and knowing that is my only intent is to enjoy the presence. And I just sit there, and sometimes I use the biblical text and I use a process that's called Lectio Divina. And that takes me, it's a process that takes me into contemplation. And that's a wonderful place. Can you see those places as a place of living in the presence and an example of loitering?
Yes, and the wonderful part about Lectio Divina is it is literally about creating space. In other words, be unbelievably practical for a minute. My phone, gone. TV, gone. Noise, gone. In other words, already the space is different.
Yes.
Those kind of simple things about creating space. There's certain things you focus on. That's the Lectio Divina. In other words, creating space. I'm all in favor of the creative space. It's the same when I garden.
Yeah. Tell me about gardening and what that does for you.
Gardening allows you to literally just be here. True, you can focus. Once you're there, you'll have all that stuff go in your head and say, wait a minute, garden looks like crap, I need to fix it. Or you can simply fuss and frutz and fritter dig, dance.
That's cool. Futz, fritter, dance, and dig.
Dig. Yeah,
Get your fingernails dirty.
I don't. It's actually in my. People introduce me. It's a part of my. What you call it? When you have the description of who we are. Is that? Anyway, introduction. One of the sentences is, "I don't trust anyone without dirt under their fingernails."
Good thing we don't see each other that often.
No.
I get a manicure every 2 weeks.
I know that you do, and I smile whenever you tell me. Here's this. You ready for this? Whenever I lecture about gardens, I'm always introduced as a garden expert. And technically I am. Ready?
Yeah.
I do not consider myself. I'm actually an amateur. Why? Because for an amateur, we enjoy the air and we watch for miracles. You ready for this? Amateur is from the French. It's a French word, and it means the one who loves for the love of.
That was what I was going to say. It's loving the act. It's not doing it.
You're thrilled by the miraculous sweetness. What? A freshly picked strawberry. Whatever it is. Everything you do, the wind through the chimes, it's heartfelt as a prayer. Birds at the feeder. You're just there.
Oh, I love it.
Everything about that is heaven.
Yes. I'm going to wrap us up with my own story. Usually, you're the storyteller. I've listened to your lectures, and 75 minutes is 75% storytelling, which are just wonderful. Or more than 75% storytelling. Yeah, more than 75%. But one of my favorite things to do, Terry, especially, it's not happened so much in the winter because it's cool, but the movie theater that I go to, and I go to movies once, if I can, if there's anything at all decent playing, I'll go to movies once or twice a week. And in the summer, once a week, there's next to my movie theater is a gelato store. And outside the movie theaters are maybe a dozen or dozen and a half chairs, comfy, soft, cushiony, sofa type thing, chairs outside that are built for outside. I go and I get, now I'll break all my health-centered rules. I get a pint of gelato, half chocolate chip and half chocolate chip. And I have my headphones on with whatever music I want, and I will sit out there either before the movie or after the movie for 30 minutes, and I do nothing but watch the kids. There's a fountain. Watch the kids playing around the fountain, people watch, coming in and just enjoying my music, enjoying my gelato. That's one of my favorite times during the week. And that's what we're describing, isn't it? There's no purpose, no agenda, no clock, just enjoy eating gelato, listening to music, and enjoying human beings.
I'll tell you a quick story.
Yeah.
You've been to the Religious Education Congress in Anaheim at the convention center.
Of course.
You've been there back in the days when there were 40,000 people, remember?
Yes, I do.
Remember the craziness of the number of people?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so the one wall, you'll remember the wall on the one side, when you're going into the place where all the booths are. You're going to, and it's just wall-to-wall people. There was a little, and it's still there now, there was a little shop that sold soft ice cream.
I remember.
Okay, I'm walking there, I don't know how many years ago, and the craziness, you remember, it's just crazy. Noisy, loud, people, everybody moving, you got to get somewhere. There was a nun in full habit, sitting against that wall, the ice cream cone, soft ice cream cone with her eyes closed, simply eating her ice cream.
That's a beautiful portrait. It almost should be. It almost. It's a work of art. I could see that as a painting.
And I wish I had taken a photo. I know that would be disrespectful, but I thought everything we've just talked about and lectured about, she gets.
Yeah. Hirsch, this is incredible. Thank you for the reminder, and thank you for helping us to remember that productivity is not our salvation, but rather it is rest. It is found in the rest of the Sabbath moments that you write about it. Thank you for that. All right, everybody. I want to thank all the listeners for tuning in to the next chapter with Charlie. And as usual, this is Charlie Hedges, and until next, I'm signing off. Bye for now.